Hello, in this video we will understand about the scientific causes of obesity. What is the scientific causes of obesity? Basically the abnormal fat deposition due to less sleep routines, genetics, epigenetics and medication. The medication basically, the drugs. This also the genetic and epigenetic. Epigenetic mean the environmental factors like when we will eat sugary material, sugary food, which that contain high in content of sugar but the less fiber. This is the person which that is basically when intake food which that trigger the pancreas due to the insulin hyperglycemia will lead to trigger insulin to produce insulin and bind with the insulin receptor with the adipose tissue will lead to glucose move inside through GLUT4 channel. In this way the adipogenesis will occur while the muscle cell also require the insulin for binding to influx of the glucose into the muscle, and whenever it will be influx into the muscle it will basically target, and in this way this is the tissue of the person. This tissue of the person is basically contain DNA. Whenever the methylation will occur unwanted will lead to cause epigenetic mutation, also cause the obesity. While the genetic is the epidemics in population, the polygenic or monogenic causes for several hormone dysfunction and our production. So the ghrelin when increase, the obesity can increase. Leptin decrease, insulin when increase, glucagon decrease, growth hormone when decrease and testosterone decrease will lead to cause obesity. And this is the genetic factor which that will lead to cause obesity because the testosterone when decrease. Inactivity in long term of the in the years and 2 years will lead to cause obesity, and the sympathetic nervous system activation due to the stress, emotional stress as well as other stress. On the other hand, the smoking will lead to trigger the obesity and the microbiome dysregulation, which that will lead to cause also obesity, and exercise also. Steroid, antidepressants, and antibiotics. Steroid and antidepressant and antibiotics, which that will lead to cause dysfunction of the physiology of the body, will lead to cause obesity. Alcohol and sugar, high calories will lead to trigger and the less exercise. This all factor is the environmental factors like exogenous steroid, exogenous antidepressant, which change the physiology which that cause the obesity. Let's understand about the another causes like sun exposure when decrease, the vitamin D will decrease. In this way the cholesterol will increase because the indirectly cholesterol increase will lead to cause obesity, while the lack of fiber, the quick absorb sugars due to the lack of fiber will lead to spike insulin quickly, will lead to cause adipose tissue formation, and in this way the adipose tissue will increase. While the intake of water will decrease when lead to cause dehydration, increase will lead to decrease the metabolism, will trigger the adipose tissue formation, cause obesity. Anyhow, now we will understand about the mechanism and how our brain can control the obesity and how the obesity can occur. But first of all, we will understand about the causes of obesity in short. For summarization, the food and activity changes, environments, genetics, health condition, medication, stress, emotional factors, and poor sleep. Leptin decrease, ghrelin increase, growth hormone decrease, and aging when increase. Whenever the growth will be decreased will lead to cause obesity. In this way, the aging will also cause obesity positively. Let's here is the brain. Brain contains hypothalamus. We will understand about the hypothalamus because it is the center of the regulation of appetite and satiety. This is the chocolate hedonic input. Whenever we will eat sugar, in this way the reward will again require the eating habit of the sugar. This is the hypothalamus contain POM C and the COT is the a nucleus, the acute nucleus, and NPY and AGRP. This is the neurons, which that is the nuclei, and it is regulate and control the MC3 and 4 receptor and Y1 and 5 receptor. This is the NPY, AGRP, and POMC endocannabinoids, which that will lead to orexigenic signals. NPY, AGRP, cannabinoid 1 agonists, which that will lead to stimulate the eating. And in this way, the stimulate of the eating will lead to Y1 and 5 receptor. In this way, it will trigger the ATP production more, while the anorexigenic signal is the inhibit eating due to the POMC and GLP-1 and the amylin, which that will lead to inhibit the eating habit. Adiposity signals leptin and insulin and adiponectin will inhibit this NPY and AGRP. In this way, the MC3 and 4 receptor inhibition will lead to inhibit the eating habit, and in this way, eating habit will inhibit, and in this way, we will not eat. So the ATP deficiency will lead to eating more, remember, due to the POMC and COT nuclei, and it will trigger the MC3 and 4 receptor, will lead to trigger the ATP. In this way, this is the adipose tissue. This whenever the fasted state, for example, when we will not eat, so some people have but some people not fatty acid oxidation quickly. So the fatty acid oxidation quickly, for example, for normal person, will lead to triacylglycerol deposition decrease, and in this way the lipolysis will increase, will also produce the adiponectin and leptin. This adiponectin and leptin collectively trigger the adiposity signal. Adiposity signal, leptin and insulin and adiponectin will lead to POMC and COT stimulation to the MC3 and 4 receptor, will lead to decrease the ATP production, will lead to increase the eating habit. But how it can be inhibited, we will understand about that. This the triacylglycerol is the fat, and this when glucose will increase in the blood circulatory system target to the adipose tissue, and in this way the increase the glucose will increase the lipogenesis, and the adiponectin and leptin will trigger the adiposity signals. Leptin and insulin and adiponectin will trigger the POMC, while the inhibit, this is the ATP will decrease, while the NPY, this is the NPY will increase the ATP, lead to inhibit the eating habit. So I hope you make sense about that. Basically, it will inhibit to each other. Why? For example, NPY will inhibit the POMC, while the adiposity signal will inhibit the NPY, and in this way, the function will not increase the eating habit. Anyhow, this is the vagal afferent nerves, which that will target to the digestive system, liver, stomach, and pancreas. In this way, the CCK will increase, will trigger to the liver, gallbladder, and glucose increase due to the muscle cells insulin resistance. So in this way the insulin will not bind with the muscle, and in this way the insulin will increase, but the not bind due to the genetic factors, and in this way the glucose will increase. Whenever the glucose will increase, will lead to influx into the adipose tissue, because the adipose tissue will prefer more insulin binding, will lead to glucose inside move inside more, and in this way the triacylglycerol will increase. When triacylglycerol will increase, the fat will increase. So in this way, I hope you make sense about this. For example, the glucose, the increase of the glucose will lead to cause obesity due to the type 2 diabetes mellitus. And in this way, the fatty acid oxidation whenever will occur will lead to adiponectin and leptin will increase, will trigger the adiposity signals and leptin and insulin and adiponectin, while the adiponectin also target to the liver for the gluconeogenesis decrease. When the gluconeogenesis will decrease, will lead to trigger more anorexigenic signal, inhibit the eating. And in this, the inhibit of the eating due to the POMC and GLP-1 and amylin will trigger the NPY and the basically acute nucleus, NPY and AGRP, collectively acute nucleus, and in this way the NPY and AGRP will inhibit the obesity. How it is possible? Basically, obesity will inhibit due to the MC3 and 4 receptor inhibition will lead to decrease of the ATP, will lead to increase more eating habit and obesity, while on the other hand the NPY and AGRP will trigger more ATP due to the Y 1 and 5 receptor. In this way you can understand this is whenever the fatty acid oxidation will trigger the more adiposity signal, will lead to POMC and CORT stimulation to the MC3 and 4 receptor to stimulate more ATP inhibition, will lead to more intake of the food and obesity will occur, while the antagonistic work for the NPY and AGRP due to the orexigenic and the inhibit eating the anorexigenic stimulation and the orexigenic signals will lead to more ATP production due to the more eating. But some people have this complication due to the genetic factors. For example, here is the fatty acid oxidation will not occur for some people. In this way, the NPY and AGRP in the acute nucleus will trigger more Y1 and 5R whenever we will not eat, but some people have. And in this, the ATP will increase. When ATP will increase due to the will inhibit the eating, will lead to more and more energy consumption and adipose tissue breakdown. So remember about that. Basically, the orexigenic signal is the NPY, AGRP, and cannabinoid 1 agonist, which that is triggered, and in this way the NPY and AGRP will trigger the Y1 and 5 receptor of the neuron to trigger the ATP production, will inhibit the eating, while the inhibit the also obesity, while on the other hand the POMC and CORT is stimulator of the ATP inhibition will lead to eating habit. So this is the complex formation of the scientific cause of obesity. Remember, this is the environmental factor will change this. Thanks for watching. Bye.